Is there a strategy that'll help you grow your company faster? CEO Sales Strategies is an investigative business podcast for entrepreneurial people who never stop asking questions. Highly acclaimed sales revenue growth expert Doug C. Brown interviews CEOs, business owners, and professionals who serve them to uncover and share actionable tips and methods behind their bulletproof sales strategies. Topics covered on the show include their failures, struggles, secrets, and processes that help them succeed in selling millions to billions of dollars of their products and services, all with the sole aim of helping you grow your business. If you are eager to know the most effective sales secrets from the A players of the game, then the CEO Sales Strategies podcast is certainly the place to be.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is Doug C. Brown with the CEO Sales Strategy Podcast. And today we have a great guest. His name is Mike Black. He owns a company called Told Media. That's T-O-L-D Media. And Mike is a very unique guy. He's a younger guy by far to me. I know he's 28 years old, and he came up in a place where I would just say he had to be innovative, and he had the desire to win. He's had some rough starts here and there, like all of us in business. He, but he's reinvented himself over and over, and he's not the type of guy that let's defeat him. One of his favorite quotes is, "It's not the lack of resources, it's your lack of resourcefulness that stops you," by Mr. Tony Robbins. And, since I had the pleasure of working with Tony, I could say that Tony would talk about things like this all the time. And so Mike's really conditioned his brain, and he's had some really good mentorship from his father. And his dad's always been in his corner because he knew his son evidently was an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurial life isn't always that easy. But Mike was able to take his business from a startup cost of losing lots of money that they had invested in, and bringing it up over 7 figures very quickly, and then keep growing the business beyond that. So we discussed a lot of different things here today. And, one of the greatest things I found was he's got a sales cycle or sales system down where, he looks at where are your people hanging out, right? And for him, he gains business from places that people would never even think about. People are looking at, how do I spend money to get client acquisition? He's like, we don't need to spend a lot of money. We just need to find out where these people are hanging out. And, they're on WeWork for him, and he's getting clients off of Indeed.com and different types of places that a lot of people would never even think about. And what is he doing? He's targeting people that have a problem that he can resolve. So like going on to Indeed, for example, he's looking at that and he's going, wow, okay. You know what? We are an outsourced company. Basically, we are a mobile and web applications and social media development company. So if somebody's looking to hire, let's say on Indeed for a social media manager, they will engage on Indeed and have that conversation. And then guess what? About 20% of the time, they're very qualified because they don't necessarily want a full-time person within their company. They just want to solve the problem that's within their company. So he first finds out where they're hanging out. Then he works on solving their problem. Now that problem could be, hey, something they could do, or it could be something that somebody else can do. And so they'll refer them off with not asking for anything, but just saying thank you, right? And then from there, the 20% that say yes, well, guess what they do? They provide value. They're qualifying the lead and they're providing value. But we talked about a lot of different things, not just the sales process that he goes through, but how do you go from a loss to a gain? And what are the things that we have to do? And how do we work our mind around this? Too many people, whether you're a $50 million company and you're stuck, or you're a $500 million company and you're stuck, or you're a $5,000 company and you're stuck. A lot of times it's our mind and the processes in which we're employing that are getting us not to go to the next level. And we have to be consistent. So without further ado, let's welcome Mike Black from Told Media to the call. Hey, this is Doug C. Brown. We've got another episode going on with a gentleman from Philadelphia. His name is Mike Black. And Mike, thanks for making it really easy on your name. And he owns a company. It's called Told Media, and they are a mobile and web application development company. And they got an interesting story, where they pretty much went from nothing and built up into the seven figures and keep going type story. So, Mike, welcome to the call, sir.
Hey, excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. You have a really interesting story because, a lot of entrepreneurs hit the wall once in a while, right? And we smush our face and that face gets, pushed down and we're down on the ground. And I mean, I remember that, an article that I read that you did. You guys basically were living, I would say, day to day when starting this process out. Is that how it worked?
So are you talking about when we started Toll Media, the dev agency?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. It wasn't a very fun start. So it was pretty brutal. I think the first, when I started Toll Media, we started off as like a tech company. We were selling software to government. We're doing a lot of government contract stuff and we didn't know what we were doing. And then we started, through that tech company that kind of failed working with government, we were like, well, we're good at product development. So we started developing apps for people and again, didn't know what we were doing, signed some bad contracts and went in a lot of debt because of those contracts. There was one in particular where we were supposed to be billing at a pretty high rate and we got 3 months into the project and realized that we had underscoped the project really heavily. And we're like, oh my God, it's literally like more financially viable to apologize. We gave them all the code and design work for free and said, sorry, here you go. And we lost like $100K on that project. I personally, from like the failed tech startup and starting off the company that way, went like $50,000 into personal debt, which was not a great way to start a company. but from then on out, I mean, when your back's against the wall like that, that was as crazy as it sounds, it was pretty awesome because it's like, you got to perform, you got to wake up, you got to get to work. And it was 80 to 100-hour weeks, no social life for a little bit, but we were able to pay off all the debt, I think in like 6 to maybe 8 months. And from there, we've been doing decently well. Yeah.
And what I love about your story is, a lot of entrepreneurs, you said you get your back against the wall. That happens. That's happened to me. I mean, I invested a business one time and this was when I didn't have the money and I put 60,000 into this and I had partners and 4 months later, we're making $1,500 a month and all my partners are gone. Right. And I had 2 little kids in diapers and not a working wife at that point. And so my back was against the wall too. So when our back gets against the wall like that, we dig in somewhere emotionally. It either as an entrepreneur, it either crushes you or it either inspires you or motivates you. Maybe, even the fear might motivate, right? Because it's like, oh, I don't want to go back even worse than where I'm at. And I loved you have a quote that you kind of live by, it's Tony Robbins, and it says this: it's not the lack of resources, that's your lack of resourcefulness that actually stops you. And I found that to be profound because it's so true, right? But
100%.
Could you expand upon that? Like what was true? Your back's against the wall. Now you've got to kind of build this up, and you did, and you paid all the debt off, and you're growing and you're scaling. And what?
Yeah, I mean, that quote in particular, I think really it's like a no excuses thing. Like I look at, and I've started a couple tech companies in the past that have failed, and it was a lack of resourcefulness. If I was more resourceful at the time when I started those other businesses, I would have done a better job of learning the things I needed to learn, finding the people I needed to find, getting the capital I needed to get if I wanted to raise capital. It's a lack of resourcefulness. And as I built more and more businesses, built more and more business acumen, you kind of build a little bit on that resourcefulness and you get better at things. And so in particular to that quote, at the end of the day, excuses are excuses, and there's always a way. It's not a lack of capital. It's not, oh, well, I didn't have the money. Go find the money, go find the people, go figure out how you can make something work, because there's always a way. unless the idea is just something that should be, killed and put to rest if it's just something that's not viable. But a lot of times you can pivot and figure out how you can make it work by doing a lot of the customer discovery. So that's why I love that quote.
You know what? So thank you. And customer discovery is another thing that I'd like to touch on because, we're all about raising revenues and growing the companies and et cetera. And a lot of times people try to do this in a vacuum. A lot of times I've seen clients and, business partners, and they go into this vacuum and it's like, well, we can solve it. But what it sounds like is you went and you talked to the consumer, the customer, you said, hey, what do you want? And then they said, no, Mike, that's not what we want. Or yes, Mike, that is what we want. Is that what happened?
Yeah. I mean, with like a lot of the like failed tech companies I'd started in the past, I would say we did enough customer discovery. We didn't do it totally correct. And it's important that you talk to your customers always. Like you always need to be talking to your customers, understanding what they actually want, especially in tech. And whenever I say especially in tech, but I mean, honestly, like in anything you're doing, you need to really know what the customer wants. I would say it's a little bit more important in tech because you deploy a lot of capital into things that you believe to be true. The more customer discovery you do, the more data you have to work with to make the right decisions. So with those tech companies, I mean, there were some that we did a great job with customer discovery, and that's why we put things to rest. And there was other times when we just didn't approach it correctly.
And I think a lot of companies have done that. The challenge for many companies is they keep running down the same path enthusiastically without asking the questions that you asked. And then, 3 years later, it's like, wow, we're losing, $7 million on this division. Well, that's because they're not talking to their customers to find out what they got to do to innovate, because what happens today, 3 years from now, could be totally different. There was a time, I remember, you probably don't because of your age, but I certainly remember when there was a time where there was no internet, right? You had none. You had no cell phone. So we have to innovate. And one of the things I loved about your story was you built your first $1 million in revenue without spending a dime on marketing. You said it was all warm outbound sales. Could you share a few of the best working tips from the outbound sales strategies that you used that made the biggest impact on your sales revenue?
Yeah, for sure. And I've actually gotten a little bit better at this over time and have gotten a little bit more into the cold outbound game as well. But when it comes to doing B2B, both warm and cold outbound is where I like to play. I'm not as good at marketing, I'd say, which is a good opportunity to go hire someone and bring in more inbound leads. But when it comes to warm outbound, if you're a B2B service, you just need to know where those people hang out. And for a development agency, if you really think about it, where are people hanging out? Now, when I say warm, I mean someone's looking for the service already. So you're still cold outreaching, they've never heard from you before, but I call it warm because they're looking for the service. So you can build an entire business of 7 figures off of doing this warm outbound, and really good places to start. And honestly, where I built a lot of it, which is going to be something I guarantee you anyone listening to this has never heard of before, is from WeWork, which is totally again, non-conventional, but WeWork is the best investment I've ever made into my business, getting space at WeWork. And I'm not talking about networking at the office and stuff, because, that is also good, by the way. If you sell services to businesses, well, guess who has space at WeWork? Businesses do. But they have an online platform, and their online platform, a lot of people post jobs, both for quote unquote gigs as well as FTE roles. And they do it all the time. And as a development agency, I'd see someone looking for, I don't know, let's just say an Angular developer, not to get too technical, but they need some engineering work. I'd reach out. And when I do those warm outbound sales, it's just getting on the call and problem solving. I never actually sell super hard. I actually just solve their problem. I'd say 80% of the time I point them in a different direction. And then the other 20%, when I feel like it is a good fit, I'll let them know, yeah, we can help you with this. I'd be happy to be helpful. But if not, here's some resources. So WeWork is really great. Something no one really leverages super hard. We've done probably throughout the entire, I think it's like been like 4.5 years or so with Told Media. I'd say we've done probably like $700,000-800,000+ just through WeWork. Then Indeed is actually really good. And it depends on the type of business you're running, and the types of services you're selling. But guess what? When you go on Indeed, and right now I'm doing a lot of content stuff, and we're selling content contracts. It's a little bit different than development, but the content stuff, like people are posting that they need, I don't know, let's just say a social media manager. And if you go on a platform like Indeed and try to hire a social media manager, and a lot of times people want like just this exhausted list of things for that person to do, and it just there's really not many people that exist that can do that, especially at the price point people are looking to hire at. It's becomes very easy. We have a 26% response rate on Indeed when we just reach out and say, hey, we saw you're looking for this type of person and we'd love to get on a call. We can help you with this stuff. And then we have like an email sequence we put them through. 26% of people respond to that. Again, I call that warm, even though it is cold, because they're already looking for the service that you provide. It might just be in a different format. And if you can show the value in working with an agency versus an FTE, which a lot of times it's easy to share value or sorry, show value. For us, it's like, hey, not only are we going to be less costly, we're also going to be better, because if you're doing, say, content, you have a lot that goes into that, and not one person can really do all those things. Whereas when you access a group of people that can do all those things in a less rate, it's a very simple value prop. So you got to think about, what are you selling? Are people interested in going B2B? And there's a percentage of people, again, at the end of the day, it is a problem. When they're hiring someone, the problem is we need to hire someone so we can grow. And the solution isn't always the best to bring someone in-house, and you can sometimes solve for that using Indeed. So that's the second place that has been really great. And then getting into like cold outbound, again, I don't do this with the dev agency. I do it with the social stuff that we do and the content stuff, but doing cold calling has been incredible. And I just recently started doing it over the last like 7-8 months. Never, ever picked up the phone and cold called. And it is mind-boggling to me how easy it is to get past gatekeepers. I just cannot believe it. It's been pretty incredible to see how well it works. So that's been really fun to kind of get a bit into that and like figure out how to best convert those things. And it's been a lot of fun doing all that.
I think you're doing a lot of great stuff here. I mean, firstly, you're finding out where the people are hanging out, the people that may already want your service, right? And then where you're engaging with these folks, you're solving their problem, trying to solve their problem, look for the problems, pains, frustrations, whatever is going on. And then you're either qualifying or disqualifying and showing them a way for those that are disqualified. Hey, listen, we're not the right fit for you, but someone else might be. And out of that 20%, let's say, you're like, okay, great. Let's provide them, additional value, not just the value of the conversation. And you pretty much just summed up what successful sales is all about. It's all about win-win. And so many people don't play it that way. A lot of people, cold calling, oh, geez, that's going to be hard. Nah, you're right. Not if you know how to do it, right? And it can be an incredibly effective
Let me correct you there. You don't even need to know how to do it. When it comes to cold calling, I picked up the phone and started cold calling with zero experience. Now, with that being said, I understand sales very well. So like, I get that stuff. There's a lot of like natural things I've picked up from just running businesses, but I've never cold called before. I didn't know how to do it. I just picked up the phone and started calling, and I just couldn't believe how incredibly well it worked. Now, the caveat to that is I've tried training some people, and I've realized that there is some, like, you really want to find people that have kind of like that natural skill of being able to talk to people. And like, it's really good if you can find people that don't just like, they can like talk without reading off a script. Because that becomes, in my opinion, problematic from my experience, because the way that I do cold calling is just getting really personal with the person, building a relationship very quickly with them. and not going on script at all, minus when there's certain things that I want to say, I'll have it in the script so I can look at it real quick. But I like to be really personal and have a personal conversations when I'm doing my cold calling. And a lot of times the conversation goes very similarly, but whenever I do any types of cold calls, I always just start it off with, "Hey, how's it going?" And I kind of laugh a little when I say that, because I try to be really friendly. And then the person, a lot of times their reaction, you can hear them like get a little happier because they hear someone that's high energy, happy as well. And then I just like ask them straight up, like, can I talk to the person who's in charge of marketing? Because that's who I want to talk to. I don't go into anything else. I just go, can I talk to the person in charge of marketing? And then it is, again, totally mind blowing to me. I would say 80 to 90% of people just give you the person's contact info. So it's pretty crazy. I don't know how deep you want to go into the actual strategies around cold calling or not, but
I think we could do a whole episode on those strategies. So that would be awesome. We'll have you back. And we're talking with Mike Black from Told Media. They are a website and a mobile applications development company and social media. And we're sharing some really great stuff here. So, Mike, one of the things that when you started out, you said the most difficult thing for me was figuring out the right business model to scale and hire the right people, which you just touched on. What was the process that helps you to finally find out, how to do that?
Yeah, that just comes with experience. And here's some big tips that I've learned from not being good at it when I first started is, first off, either get mentorship that is very senior in terms of talent, or obviously try to hire senior talent as quickly as possible, or even pay for it to help with like vetting. Now, when it comes to actually looking in doing the recruitment, whenever you're hiring for any type of role, it's what I've gotten a lot better at is like doing a good job of like doing the initial background on like just the person's LinkedIn. Like I'm going to use software development because that's the world I'm in. It's hard to look at someone's background sometimes and know exactly what they've done on projects. But I'm much better now at looking at a LinkedIn and go, okay, they're a software engineer. Oh, this company, they're a senior software engineer. This one, they're more of a contributor. And then when I get into the interview, again, I'm not technical. I've never written a line of code. But when I get into the interviews, I can ask the right questions to try to figure out, and this is important for any role, figure out what did they actually do in that role. Because a lot of times they'll have something that looks flashy and fancy on the LinkedIn, but then you find out what they're actually responsible for at the company, and it might be a letdown, or it might be great, depending on how what they're actually doing. So that's how I've gotten a little bit better at hiring, is like really just that small thing right there, like of like understanding how to break down someone's LinkedIn and really dig into what they actually did and accomplish at the company. And then there's some small tricks I've picked up over time. Just like when I interview someone, I want them to be honest. So I'll ask them things like, hey, so when we do a reference check, what is your boss going to say about you? And then that implies we're definitely going to do a reference check, so you shouldn't lie. So just small little tips like are things I've picked up on that. And then whenever it is a technical type of role, I always have someone very senior do the technical interview, whether it is development or if it's marketing, whatever it is. I really want someone that really understands that thing to do the technical interview.
Excellent. So you have a systematic process on there. Again, we could do a whole episode on this, and maybe we should in the near future. Mike, if somebody wants to get a hold of you or experience a little bit more about your company, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can just check us out, toldmedia.com. Or if you want to just shoot me an email and say hi, or if I could be helpful, you can shoot me an email at mike@toldmedia.com.
And that's told like I already said, or
told like tell your story. TOLD as in dog. I know I have that Philly accent.
Well, I have a Boston accent, so between the two of us, some people probably won't be able to understand us, but some will. So I want to thank you for being here today. I know people are going to get a lot out of this. I was wondering, who's one of your heroes in life? Like, what if I said, Mike, who's your hero? Like, present or past?
Man, that's a tough question. I'd say if I had to pick anyone, I mean, this is such a common answer, I'd say. But like my dad is definitely my biggest inspiration, hero. He's incredible. The amount of the way that he just like approaches life is pretty incredible. He like has really taught me how to, or I've just learned just by being with him to just like not take things too seriously, always have fun and always do the right thing. So typical dad stuff, but I'd say my dad's at the top of the list.
Well, being a dad myself, I can tell you that this probably, for all the people who are listening, is probably the most important point that we just made to this whole thing, right? Your children are going to emulate what you do. As a leader in a company, people are going to emulate what you do. So, you learn that through, I'll call it osmosis, and growing up with a great father. And that's just translating into your success. So excellent. Well, Mike, I'm going to bid you a wonderful day. It is a pleasure to have you on here. I really appreciate you being here. I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. And go to toldmedia.com, folks. And I'm going to put everything in the show notes for you. But check him out. He seems like a really great guy. And in the conversations I've been having, and they deliver with their clients. So till next time, Mike, thank you again for being here.
Yeah, Doug, I can't thank you enough. This was fun.
Wow. This is Doug C. Brown here. That was a great interview with Mike. When many of us get our backs against the wall, we're always stressed, right? And so we can either look at this as, okay, this is a terrible thing, or you know what, I'm about to learn something. And what Mike did was he went the latter. I'm about to learn something. I got to now dig in because I don't have options like I had in the past. I have to dig in because if I don't dig in, then the downside is even higher than already hitting the wall. So that's when you get hit from the, back against the wall. If you don't dig in and start doing what's necessary, then the business is going to take and slam you into the floor. That's pretty much what happens. And he looked at the equation, what I teach all the time, which is money in, money out equals something. And so he focused on the money in, right? But he had to get creative because he didn't have any money to actually put into, say, marketing or prospecting. He had very limited budgets. And I remember reading one time where Mike was actually, they would veem each other. In other words, his partner would actually invoice Mike and Mike would pay him via a credit card. And then the partner would have to give Mike back the money in order to actually pay the bills for the company. That's where they were at. And they went from that and quickly grew up into a 7-figure plus company. And they're continuing to grow today. So no matter where you are, there's the message. No matter where you are, if you're stuck, whatever, one of the things that Mike really said was get mentors, get people who can help you out. Because if we're doing things from our own frame, then all we can see is what's in that own frame. We've created the frame. That's what's got us stuck there in the first place. So I appreciate you all being here. If you like this episode, please go up and give it a 5-star review. And if you want to hear anything in the future on subject matter, please comment, send us a message, an email, or whatever it might be. And we'll be happy to look at that and see if we could do a show for you in the future on that specific subject matter. Until next time, this is Doug C. Brown signing off and saying, make it a great day. Go sell something. Go grow your revenues. Continuously focus and to your success.